What? You got your gloves on?
Big fat sausage fingers. What the? You got the smallest gloves on the planet.
And that's, you only got one on so far. That's terrible.
You have tiny hands.
Mine fit.
Because you have tiny...
I got those carny hands. That's what you need when you're rolling greasy. You need
thinking Volkswagen hands.
Why do Volkswagen mechanics have tiny hands?
Yes. Long fingers and tiny hands. You got frickin' the Volkswagen. And everything is so tiny there.
It is. Everything's Torx bolts and O-rings. Everything's got O-rings. Alright.
Alright. Still, what the... I gotta retire these sausage links.
Alright, so before we can get this wheel bearing out, there's something you always want to do.
Break the nut loose first.
You got to break that axle nut loose first. Now what we need is some screwdrivers.
That's freaking ridiculous. Alright.
Alright, I got the screwdrivers.
Bring it fixed just in case you get her started.
You got the big zap gun?
Yep, big zap gun's out.
Alright.
The big nut buster's out.
Alright, so before we can get this hub off with the wheel bearing in it, because we're doing wheel bearings today, we got to get the axle nut loose.
Excellent. Let me go get some bigger sockets. I don't have big enough ones there.
So luckily on this, these are nice steel wheels. When you pull cover off, you have direct access to the axle nut. Makes it easy. Alright. So you got a cotter pin there, you got to take that out. Just got to bend the cotter pin back up straight, like before it was ever installed.
That's a freaking big size there, remember?
It's good to work it back and forth a little bit.
I have to get my other... She might be a
Get
30.
it loose. Alright.
She might be a 36.
You got
Yeah, she might be. You need a bigger set of...
just yank it out. Alright, yep. What you got to do to yank it out?
I got to get some bigger sockets. I need a 36, it looks like. Yeah, she's a 36.
Alright. Got the 36 millimeter. It's really important to have this wheel on the ground, or otherwise you probably won't be able to break this axle nut loose. And look at that.
She did it.
She's nice and loose. So once you got it loose like that, you're good to basically put the vehicle in the air.
In the air and pop the lugs off.
You gonna put her up in the air?
Yep. Pop her up in the air and I'll throw her jacks on those.
This Nissan's got that nice K-frame jacking point.
A lot of vehicles don't have that.
No, they don't. And it's terrible.
Oh, that's good.
All right.
Right there. Put it right there. She should be. I got it.
You got it? Sure. I get
All
it.
right. I think it's 2 clicks. I think it's 2 clicks off and then...
Could you hit me one more on that? Yep, on the jack?
Sure.
There we go. That should work.
Put it down slowly.
All right. You might want to readjust yours a little bit.
I noticed it started going back, right?
Yeah. Can you fit it in there sideways? That might work.
Actually, yours is up here.
Oh yeah, there it goes. Yep, on the bolt heads.
Oh, like that.
Able.
Keep a little tension on the jack.
Yep, a little tension.
Just to...
Extra safety.
Let's pop these off.
Now, if you don't have a nice impact gun like this, you'd have to keep the wheel on the ground to bust these loose with a breaker bar. But we have this sweet 1,100 pound-foot of torque impact. Oh yeah. Look at that. Zap them straight off. Roll her away. All right. Now I'll go get my tray of tools.
All right.
All right. So what do we got here?
Well, you have the keys?
I think they're 13 millimeter.
You want to pull the whole bracket off, or do you want to?
Actually, yeah. Let's just pull the whole bracket off.
You got keys?
You want to unlock the steering wheel?
Yeah.
All right. So sometimes, to get at bolts and steering in the steering system, you got to unlock the steering wheel. Put the key in, but don't turn it on. Just unlock it, so you can move it around, angle it out.
Good.
So we're going to remove the whole bracket. What size is that?
18.
So we need an 18 socket, and we're just going to bust these caliper bracket mount bolts loose. You can see down there and there, just breaking those loose. All right.
It's an 18.
So a lot of people don't know this, but 3/4 and 18 millimeters, they're actually pretty much the same. And they're one of the few standard and metrics they'll swap back and forth. It's pretty rare you'll find a 3/4 and 18 bolt that you can't put both sockets on. Pretty rare. Need a ratchet?
I'll zip it off a bit to this height. Still a little tight. Now, once you get this caliper off, you're going to want to bungee it up in a safe place.
Alright, so I'm going to go grab my spool of safety wire. Or you got a bungee? So you can either use, you can go to Lowe's and buy some bungee cords. If you can't find those, there's you can use fencing wire off a spool. You get that at Lowe's, and you can cut a spool of it and wrap it around the caliper. Basically, it's just to get this caliper up and so it never falls and puts tension on this brake hose. You can damage these fittings, cause them to leak. You think it's all right, do all your get your job done. You're rolling down the road, and then bam, your brake line explodes off. Not fun.
Not fun.
Alright, so we're removing the rest of that axle nut.
What you can do is you also stretch these lines where they suck in on themselves when you hit the brakes and don't want to release the caliper.
There's that too, yeah. You can delaminate the inside of the line, and the brake fluid can't go back to the reservoir. So brake rotor's off, axle nut is off. When you take these axle nuts off, make sure that sometimes washers come out of there. Keep those washers and the nut together for the axle nut. Don't lose that spacer washer.
Special lock nuts.
Alright, so now I'm going to turn the steering wheel back the other way, because we're going to have to bust that tie rod loose.
Yep.
Want it full the other way so you can get the tie rod?
Yeah.
Alright. Alright, so now we're going to remove this tie rod, and sometimes there's a cotter pin on these and sometimes there isn't.
This one there is.
So this one there is a cotter pin. You just got to do the same thing that we did the axle nut. Straighten the bent ends of the cotter pin back out so it's nice and straight, and so it'll come out on the front. Now there's a couple different ways you can get these out. The best way is a pair of diagonal cutters, or you can use one of these little guys and work them into the end of the cotter pin if you can fit it in there. So
yeah,
let it get in there.
No, not yet. Oh yeah, it will.
Oh, see that? You scoop it in, then start working it, bend it out until you can get a hold of it with some pliers. And bam, out with some pliers.
Okay.
So what size is that?
17 or an 18? Probably an 18. Oh, it's even bigger than 18.
Oh wow. Look at
Might bump up to
19?
21.
19.
19.
Alright, so 19. Now these usually aren't on that tight on passenger cars. On trucks though, a lot of times you got to use the impact to get them off.
Yeah, they can't really be able to torque because, of course, the rubber seal too much.
Right.
The little boot there.
It'll damage the actual tire
And that's
rod.
what the pin is for, to help it not back out.
That's right. In case it comes untorqued because of vibration. Alright, you want the...
Now, what you can usually do is tap right here, and most of the time she'll pop right out. You do it that way if you don't want to replace this. If you use a pickle fork, you damage the rubbers and you probably have to replace it. Unless they're really stuck in there, they should pop out.
So basically all you're doing is you're breaking that press fit loose. And look at that,
There
she
it
popped
is.
right out. And again, on little cars like this, that works pretty good. On big trucks though, sometimes you gotta use a little heat and you end up resulting to the old pickle fork, which is no big deal if you're replacing the tire rod, because you destroy the boot, but you're putting a new tire rod on.
So it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter.
Doesn't hurt anything else.
Right, but if you're trying to save it,
Okay.
try to avoid the pickle. Right now, there's another cotter pin that holds the lower ball joint on to the knuckle. And he's working the cotter pin out right now, just like we did before. You can see it right there. Works.
That is.
Alright. You're going to pull that cotter pin out, which is freaking easier said than done.
On this one anyway.
Well, she's almost there.
Yep, she's almost there.
Now what you don't want to do with these cotter pins is break them in half really, because a lot of times you'll get one half of the cotter pin out and the other will still be stuck in there. You want to try to get them out all as one piece. It's easier that way. Oh, there went the old glasses. Can you see, Phil?
Pretty hot today.
Yeah,
Sweat rolling off.
it's hot.
You don't always get perfect weather when you work on cars.
Nope, you don't.
Come on, baby.
Oh, you broke her in half. The deadly break in half.
No, I didn't.
She's broken in half.
Okay. Oh. There she is. As long as you get all the pieces out.
Yeah, as long as you get all the pieces out, that's all that really matters.
There she is. Okay, now that looks like a 21.
21 millimeter. A lot of times you got to use the open end of the wrench because they're so close to the axle on these.
It's even bigger.
You know what we can do to make this easy on us is break them strut bolts loose first,
We could do that.
and then drop this down and get the axle out. So let me get a wrench. See, that is a
Should be 21.
nope, it's a 19. So that's a 19. You want to get the blaster? A 19 on it.
Other side might be
It looks smaller actually.
smaller. It is. That's a 3/4, and that's might even be a 15.
16.
16 or 17, which
Do you have a 16?
I have a 17.
That's a
now.
17.
Hold.
Alright. There we go. Alright, so now that those strut attach nuts are out, we should, in theory, want to give it a whack. Hold on.
There we go.
Be able to slide this axle out. So once you have the axle out, if you look down here, now you have access to that
That ball joint.
lower ball joint nut. How bad is she? She's pretty bad. And look at that.
And she's free.
Love cars that aren't rusty.
Easy to work on, they are.
Easy to work on. Now if we're lucky, this will lift right off, but nope. I'm gonna give it a whack with the old hammer, just like the tie rod. And there she goes. And she's off. Look at that.
And she's off.
The entire hub is off. Alright, now this is a pretty good time to go and look in the rest of the suspension. You can check your axle boots. They've got some stress marks on them, but they're not broken, so I'm going to leave it. A lot of customers with, you know, older cars, they don't want to go through replacing stuff that doesn't need replaced. Now this ball joint,
That's pretty crappy.
see,
It's seen better days.
it's seen better days. Might have to ask the owner if they want
Just to change that out?
a new one, or to leave it. Alright, but they'll have to tell me what they want to do. Alright.